You're listening to the iRacers Lounge podcast, where we discuss everything iRacing in a casual setting. Enjoy. Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I'm your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Greg Hectus.
Am I the only character today?
Yep, we're going to have some late arrivals. But on the show today, we'll be recapping the eNASCAR Coke Series race from Richmond, as well as the Porsche Super Cup race at Red Bull Ring. Right. We'll ask why so much difference from COTA in iRacing and the real race, and we'll ride along with Snoop Dogg in iRacing. Sim Coaches offers the realistic sim racing equipment you need to win more races online. It is designed for real racers. Hydraulic construction makes them feel just like the real thing. High quality construction, 100% leak proof, and lifetime warranty are the key features with these pedals. And they look absolutely amazing. Check out simcoaches.com. Use the coupon code iRacersLounge to get 10% off your purchase. Simcoaches.com is your ticket to feel like you've actually sitting behind the wheel of a car, drive harder, and stay on the limit longer. They have a video out right now where they're showing off perhaps some new stuff. Like he had a triple monitor mount that was all custom. So maybe new products coming.
That'll be exciting.
Well, what was really exciting was seeing the look on Mr. Snoop Dogg's face as he was rage quitting iRacing. And I had no idea that Snoop was racing with us. That's cool. That's so cool.
I think it was interesting to see him that he's even in the open wheel series too, right? Like I don't know what I would expect him to drive, but the open wheel series is definitely interesting.
Yeah, and he's obviously streaming his race, and he gets into the wall, and the look on his face, oh my God, it's like he could not be more serious, like pissed off, mad, like what the F just happened, kind of thing. And then he rips off his headset and just, rips it off his head, and damn,
Pounding the desk, right? He was just pounding that desk.
I just love the passion. I had no idea that he was a racer.
Yeah, I never expected that I never expected him to get into the sim, but that just shows you the reach that it has, right?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of casual users out there that we're probably unaware of that, hop on, try some stuff, dump it in the wall because it's so hard and walk away, much like Snoop did. Let's talk COTA. Crazy race. It was fun to watch at the end, and typical NASCAR is what I would say. But of course, the question came up in the forums, Greg, that hey, what would happen in iRacing if the same situation happened?
It's kind of interesting because we had a first taste of this. Do you remember last year at the Fast Track? In our league did it, and so I guess was it Tyler Stokesbury posted that I noticed specifically with COTA, NASCAR is allowing drivers to use a lot of the paved off areas. How hard would it be NASCAR to lay out where the only difference is expanding track limits that follow the NASCAR rules more closely? So basically, what they would have to do, I guess, would they not have to consider it as another layout? So you'd have the same F1 layout and the NASCAR layout, but you'd be clicking the NASCAR tab and it would, giving this runoff area. But we raced that runoff area and it does help you, but COTA is such a restricted track when you're driving on it for X's. If you look at the track even the wrong way, it gives you an X.
So I don't know if you heard the door bumper clear, but
Yeah, I did.
we had a story on this as well, and they're asking why is NASCAR enforcing those? I think it's the S's or the three corners. There's three corners specifically. If you shortcut, you would be penalized. And so there was one situation where somebody got forced down there. They were going to penalize him, but then they withdrew because he was forced. And it just makes those judgment calls. And like Brett Griffin was saying, we don't need these judgment calls. He was saying, put a camera in there on each corner and a guy, and if they go over, they go over, and so they were saying basically that Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson and some of these guys are getting preferential treatment on these non-calls versus calls, and the back markers were getting called, and it's a problem in NASCAR. But as far as it ties to iRacing, what I want to see at COTA and iRacing is the same out of bound limits that the NASCAR boys have. If they're enforced in the three corners, fine. Everywhere else, I want to be able to run off, okay, without the 1X, and I want to race it just like they're racing. The way that they went down into turn one and they all fan out 7, 8 wide, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, it could probably create a different out of bounds
Lost you.
because you got me. Um, I think they could create it because we saw this problem with Spa years ago when they didn't when Spa was so strict and they changed some of the limits on it. I mean, it would be good to do this. I know the door bumper clear guys were kind of, they're always poking a little bit of favoritism towards Hendrick Motorsports, anyways. I don't know, they see a lot more than what we would naturally see on TV bias wise, but as it goes to racing on the track, I would believe iRacing could do it. Do they want to for one race of the year? I don't know. Do they really want to spend resources and time to change all that stuff for a 1 week series?
Yeah, good point. I just feel like Coda for us and it was just like who could not run off. I mean, just keep it on the pavement, and you had a good race, and because the off tracks were just so close to the edge everywhere, and so you really had to tiptoe instead of race.
Yeah, and I think this is obviously the first road race of the year too. So we're trying to figure out the new car and what we need to do it. But to be on one of the most strict tracks to run too in 17X, you basically go around that whole track and come back with 8 or 9X. Just what 1X is on the way around, on one lap. So it's tough, but I'm okay with what they've done with the Coda track, but I would love to see it the other way because, like I said, we did race it last year in a league race where they ignored the track limits, and it was actually enjoyable to do that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is if we were able to go wide and one and some of these other corners, it would be great because you could really try a little harder, and you wouldn't be penalized.
See, I think, and it's surprising because I thought NASCAR didn't they create a whole system for even pit road? I know they were talking about this on the show, but didn't they create a system in pit road when something went out of the box, it would detect to NASCAR and it would show them what it was doing? Could they not have done the exact same thing with an overhead camera? Say this is where the cars have to go through, and if something has made its way, it detects it going through it. Like there's probably something they could definitely do for that track for what they were talking about on that podcast.
Well, like Brett's saying, if you're going to have the rule, you have to be able to enforce it correctly, and they're not doing it correctly apparently. But obviously, iRacing can do it easily because by programming. That's what I'm saying. Let's just change the one-offs to match what NASCAR has. So if there's three corners that have them, then that's it. Then the rest of the corners, it's wide open, man. Whoever gets there first wins.
Well, and we were saying this about Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen was always different with the runoff areas too, right? So it'll be interesting to see if that would ever get changed. Like I said, I don't know if iRacing devotes any resources to do it.
Yeah. So now I'm going to jump ahead, Greg, to a related story, several down, and it's would Chastain get protested if this last lap move with Allmendinger during the NASCAR race was on iRacing versus NASCAR? If iRacing was the sanctioning body, would he get protested? And this is an interesting topic, and there's a lot of debate in the forums about it. I think Nim Cross even weighed in here and said specifically, he says, quote, for iRacing, intentional wrecking is not allowed under any circumstance. You will see this in the iRacing sporting code.
Yeah, it would be interesting. This would be definitely a David Hall topic if he was here tonight to talk about this thing. But what goes in NASCAR a lot of the days, and
Lost you.
a lot of the things in NASCAR don't pertain to what we do in iRacing. Like they move guys on the regular to do a lot of these things, right? So does it really, iRacing, you can't really compare iRacing and what NASCAR does at all because of the strict policy guidelines that iRacing sets out, right?
Well, I understand why Nim says that. And, we've seen it before, even in sanctioned races like the Coke race, somebody gets moved for the win and, does he get protested? Probably not.
Now my question is, like, if Mike, if you were in that position where Ross Chastain, or again yourself, Mike, because you don't glorify yourself as a an awesome road racer, but if you came down to your being, a chance at your first road win, and you're in that situation with somebody, do you even try? Do you just try it in the first place because and risk the protest?
Oh, hell yeah. Wreck my grandma
Yeah.
races.
So
That. I think we're all like that to a degree. And, rubbing is racing. And, there's a couple things, like Dale Jr. Download. I mean, he was talking about how, Ross Chastain is getting, a reputation, for how he drives, and everyone knows it. But when AJ moved Chastain, it was a nudge. It was a bump him into the next groove up. He's able to continue on and still fight. Okay, okay. That's rubbing his racing. That's something that I do when I race sometimes for a win. But what Chastain did after that, and where he pile drove him, into the 48 car and dumped him clear off the track. That was a little bit over the top.
yeah, but I think we had this conversation too about if the 48's not even there, it's a bump and run, and AJ saves that. It's just out of the way. He's pushing him further off the track. But because the 48's there, it's one of those really hard impacts where it's going to spin out the car that was shunted. So I don't know if it's just an unfortunate thing, but something happened. Watching the way that would come back, AJ should have been already, after he bumped him and took off, he should have been gone. Something happened on the way out of those, on that sweeping right hander, where AJ just didn't get going as fast as you thought he would, and it left the door open. And what's the saying? If you're gonna move somebody, move him so he never gets back to you. Because if he gets back to you, you're in a world of trouble.
Yeah, the run part. Yeah, exactly. So, and so I know why Nim would say that. I think in the spirit of would this be protestable in iRacing? I think the part where AJ moved Ross initially, that's not protestable really. But the other way around, technically that could be a protest. The way that, he pile drove him in there a little bit hard. And it's kind of one of those things. It's a judgment call, and I'm sure they would, give him that stern warning and whatever. Yeah.
Well, and to go with what you're saying there, Mike, I think if you look at that lap as a whole, so say it's two racers on iRacing and it's the exact same situation, the first guy moved the guy out of the way and kind of rode on. They didn't have an accident. And then the second guy went in there and did that as a whole totality of a whole incident. It would be a very hard thing as the second guy to defend that it wasn't a retaliatory move, right? Like if it was something on the last lap and that was all that was going on and there wasn't an incident beforehand, maybe it gets through a little bit more because it's going for the win. But because it's on a retaliatory part of it, I think you would get a pretty nasty. You might get a week off for that move.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, wins are hard to come by in some of these series, it's like, would I do it? I mean, you do it, like I said, you try the bump and run, and you got to know what you're doing, or you can't mess it up, but that's different than driving it in from five back, and clipping the guy, and or something stupid, and I'm not doing that.
Well, and I think also the worst part of iRacing is the bump and run. You don't know if the bump and run is actually a bump and run where you're going to touch the guy and push them out of the way, or net code them and spin them out, right? Like there's just that degree of difficulty where net code can come into it and ruin what you're thinking is going to go on.
Yep. Well, I mean, the other part of this too, I mean, I wanted to say is, the e-drivers or the iRacers out there, they're taking their clues from what they see on TV, of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, how do you do this racing? Let's say you're, from Europe and you're not really savvy on the oval stuff, and you watch NASCAR and you're trying to learn how to do this. I mean, this is what they're learning when they see it.
Oh, definitely. It's a lot of people come into the sim because they see things. I want to do that type of thing, and they realize, oh, I can do it simulated wise, instead of I don't have to go out and tear up and pay my own money and just do it this way, and I can race at professional guys or whatever. It just kind of lends the of it happening, but I think we always get that between the other parts of the world and then the North American racing, we always get that difference of etiquette, right?
Yep. And obviously iRacing is a little bit different. You're not supposed to intentionally wreck anyone for any reason. And so I'll say that out loud again, that is the rule. And so, yeah, I mean, you're playing with fire, I guess, if you want to do the bump and run, and see if you can get away with it. All right. This next one is, I'm going to say controversial.
We need to start some music for you on this one. David needs to insert something good here.
Lens or something. Okay, so we've had an announcement from iRacing. It says, for a short period of time, iRacing will enable a new event registration forwarding system for the Classic member site. This system will prevent registration actions of all types for events of any kind from the Classic member site only. So this is it. They're neutering the website where you cannot register for an event. Completely neutering it.
And we've been on borrowed time with the website since the UI came out. We kind of knew that this was gonna happen eventually someday. We just I thought that the UI would be a lot more further along maybe than what it is compared to how good the website's been for so many years.
Well, that's my thing. I mean, in my opinion, they still have not matched the functionality of the Classic member site in the UI. At least match it, if not make it better. But they haven't even matched it. And so until they get to that point, I'm not a fan. But obviously, if I want to race when they do this, I'm going to have to use the UI. Now, the first question that came up in our chat when we talked about this was, What about Brian and his third-party app that doesn't work if he launches from the UI, and those people that have those problems? I mean, there's no thought of that.
No, and I'm sure other sites are gonna jump on quickly. Like these third party apps really get involved. Maybe they were just waiting for this shoe to drop where it forces them to try and figure out how to make these, the apps work for the website or for the UI. Um, but it is difficult, maybe on a budget for some of those smaller apps too to even get this done.
Right. So anyway, this is not permanent yet. It's a temporary thing they're going to do coming up tomorrow and the next day, and well, actually over the weekend. So it's Friday through Sunday, basically, um, and apparently after Sunday it goes back to normal.
So it's basically a test just to see if they can sustain and not have any problems by shutting down the website and seeing how well it can do for a couple days on its own.
Basically. And they also say the Creventic Endurance Series special event is running during this time. And so that's another test. Now, they do give some reasoning behind why this is needed. Where did I read that at, though? Oh, here it is. Presently, all registration activities done through the Classic member site have the potential to create database contention and conflicts in some rare situations, and the chances of this occurring are higher during very populated special events. By funneling all registration through the racing UI, everything will run smoother, faster, and there'll be no risk of database contention or locking. So that's the reason is you got two different sources or customer uh, interfaces that are accessing the same database, and it can create issues. And so they want to basically just have one user interface.
I wonder for coding and problematic solving down the road, if going to just one system will make it a lot easier for them to do things going forward. Like you're saying, if you're trying to combat a two-headed monster when you really don't need to, it might be a little bit, it'll be more of a stress relief on them if they can get the UI um, to be their only main focus.
Right. Well, how many casual racers that, don't pay attention to stuff are going to get caught off guard on this? I'm sure that they're going to program the website, push this big button here to go racing, and make it pretty obvious. But still, I mean, I don't know. I hope it goes well. I understand why they need to do it. Let's do it. But man, let's get the UI better. Let's make it where it's got all the features that the regular website has. That's all I ask.
Well, here, Mike, I'm gonna, just tell me if this feels right for you too. I'm gonna give you a week in my eyes of how I use the website and the UI together. So on Monday nights, we have our Fast Track League, which I access through the UI to either test from the UI with it once it's registered as a session before we actually go in it, and then obviously go and race. But then Tuesday, if I do testing, I'm in the website using the website to do the, clicking on the race or the practice sessions and that. And then Wednesday, the same thing. I'll be on the website. Thursday night, if I'm accessing it, I'll have another league, and I'm going to be using the UI to access that league. Friday, it'll be back to the website, and then anything on the weekend. It's a lot of the stuff is just any of the actual official races. I use the website to access all the time. League is basically the only time I'm using the UI to access my certain races for, right?
Well, I know I'm doing League on the website too. I do everything on the website except for AI.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably feel the same way I do. I just think there's way too many clicks on the UI do what one simple thing you used to do on the website.
That's what I was just thinking is, how fast do I get to be able to launch a league session? I sit down, I open Google Chrome, it opens to the iRacing member site. I have to click league session, and hit the green button. That's 4 clicks of a mouse. Okay. Now, tell me how many clicks it is in the UI.
So you would click to open the UI, you wait for it to load.
You've already failed because we have to wait for it to load. We don't have to wait for Google Chrome to load and a website to load. That's instantaneous. So,
Well, and how many people, it's their homepage, right? Like my homepage is the members site.
right. So it's just like, it's not better. It's not better.
No, and like I said, I think we're still miles upon miles away from it being something where you don't feel like. I mean, if I probably in a couple, if were forced for the next week to do it, I'm sure it's going to be no problem on our end. There's probably something we'll be looking for at some point and go, oh no, where is it? And then you can't find it on the UI because it doesn't exist or it's really hard to find. But then, I don't know. I think it's probably two of us we're so invested in the website because I've been here since what, 2010, 2009.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like you know, if I worked there, I would just be saying, you know what? Let's port the website into a tab in the UI for those old geezers that don't like anything else. Why couldn't they just recreate the exact same thing, in the UI, and they have the new interface and the old interface, and you could switch between them or whatever?
Now, you were obviously more integrated in the old forms and stuff too. Like, I feel like the UI, if it got switched over all of a sudden and we weren't allowed to use the website, I feel like it would feel for like the forms for me. I used to visit the old forms a lot more. I don't even go to the new forms as much anymore because I feel like it would just be less. Or I just feel like I know less about the new forms.
There's less traffic there for sure. Now, the volume has picked up a bit since they initially changed to the new forums, but you're right. Even myself, I don't spend as much time in the forums as I used to. It's just not the same. But we'll see how this plays out. Now, I'm sure it'll be one of those. It was a success, and we need to, so we're going to plan on doing this permanently. Is probably what we'll end up with. Which, I'll roll with it. I'm not going to not race because of it or anything like that. But I just, hey, I want good stats. I want to be able to enter my league race in 4 clicks. You got to understand how I do racing. I'll turn on my rig and I'll walk out of the office and I'll get everything up and running from my cell phone, remoting in with remote Chrome desktop. And I'll remote in and I'll fire up the website and all my third-party apps, and I'll register, by, like I said, with 3 clicks for my league event, and it's just not that easy with the UI, like how can I get to my third-party apps and make sure they're all up if I have this big UI open, and so it's just different, and I'll have to figure out a flow. And McCubbin joins us just in time for they're going to nuke the website story.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry to be late.
Well, you're not late because you're just in time for the Porsche Super Cup Championship Round 5.
Yeah, so Round 5 was this past Saturday. It was at the Red Bull Ring. And Red Bull's own driver, Sebastian Jacques, became the 5th different main event winner in the 5 rounds of the new Porsche series. So that's his first win of the season, obviously, because there's been a different winner every week. But Job actually was able to jump all the way to second in the point standings after that victory. He's had a really rough start to the beginning of the season. He was out of the top 20 after the first 2 weeks, but he's really come on strong in the last couple of rounds to make his way up to P2 in the standings with this win. Um, Sebastian was one of the favorites, especially after all the Coanda guys kind of pulled out of the series to take this championship, and had that real slow start, and people were like, "Man, what happened to Sebastian Job? He was supposed to be like almost a ringer for this." Well, he's back in it now after this win at Red Bull Ring, and he's going to be putting pressure on now for the rest of the season to take this title.
Yeah, he's only 40 points off the first place. So, and you would imagine he would pick up some momentum, hopefully, and continue to run well.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. But yeah, he is still 38 points is the exact gap between first place Diogo Pinto, who is currently the leader in the series. So it's not a huge lead, but it's definitely something Sebastian could probably put a lot of pressure on with these the last half of the season coming up.
All right, very good. How did we do on the Sebring 12 hours? How'd Tifosi do? You guys didn't.
David started, and I was getting up to race with it to go in the car, and I had already woke up to a message saying we were out of it. So his first 2 hour stint or whatever it was not enough to get. The car wasn't in good enough shape for me to get in to do the next stint. So we were out of it. But top split honors go to Josh Rogers and Michael DeJean in the Coandis Motorsports cars for their 12-hour event. Awesome job. I mean, I'm not surprised that they're at the top and one top split. Are you guys?
No, definitely not. These guys are the premier road racers, apparently, in whatever series they run. And yeah, I'm not surprised at all that team took the championship or the win for that Sebring.
And only in one car, so that's quite a bit of driving.
Well, I mean, it's for 12 hours. It's just switching on back and forth, right? I mean, the 12-hour one's a little bit more of a manageable one for a two-driver thing. That's why it's like, best to have 4 for 24 hours and 2 for 12 hours or 3 for 12 hours. But those guys, hands down, probably could run the 12 hours both by themselves and probably still come away with a win.
All right. Found a video from Dom Parker Racing. He said he's been on iRacing for 1 calendar year. And so in his YouTube video, he wanted to do a video to show how much did he actually spend. And so at the end of so he kind of documents his journey through iRacing through the first year. And if you're new to iRacing, this is very interesting if you're trying to do it on a budget or you're not sure, what direction to go or what to buy. He makes some smart decisions on how to purchase. Usually on week 13, he would buy tracks and that he needed for the upcoming season. And he would target a particular car in a season as he progressed up the ranks and bought accordingly. And then sometimes he would splurge and, I'm going to get a dirt car that looks like fun and a dirt track, or he would, try some other disciplines and he didn't go crazy, but he did enjoy it. And so at the end of the day, I think it was $667 is what his number was. But it was fascinating to see what he decided to buy, why he bought it, what it was his reasoning for buying it, that kind of thing. He was always trying to do a quantity discount when he did buy. And so he would not try to buy them one at a time. He would wait and get several at a time.
Yeah, and you know, that's always been the thing about iRacing that people have been warning about, that it could be super expensive. But I think it goes to show that, yeah, it's going to be more than buying a $50 game or something like that. But it is a different experience than that, and it's not crazy expensive if if you just careful with what you buy. You don't get too extravagant, and over time, that cost can be spread out, and it's a lot more palatable if you're spreading things out, and you're not buying everything at one time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that, Brian, because that's absolutely the truth. I mean, that number is pretty big for 1 year, because I went and decided to add up what I've spent. Now, believe it or not, I keep a checkbook on a website, and so I have a way of searching iRacing and how many times I've paid them over the years. 82 different times I've paid them, almost basically $1,400. That's the total amount I've paid iRacing, and I've been on 11 years. Now I'm going to break that. I did some math to kind of break that 1,400 down into some perspective. So I figured it's $18 per win with my 79 wins, or it's 48 cents for every start I've had in a race, or it's 0.06 cents a lap if you count all the laps I've done, or per year I've spent 127 per year.
Should we really be having the discussion about how much someone spent in a first year when this sim's been around now 13, 14, 15 years going on? Because when we first started, if you started in 2008, you might have only spent $70, $100 in the first year, because that's all the content there was. When you've got the option to spend $3,000 or $4,000 on something because it's all there dangled in front of you, you're probably going to spend more, right? So, if you don't pick a certain discipline, say this guy bought it and just for 1 year just ran the NASCAR races, he'd have probably 20 tracks in one car, and 20 plus tracks and then one car. You're looking at probably what he paid it in for it. But now, what's his investment in year two, depending on what he wants to do? Does year two now go down to say $100, and then now, so over 2 years he's spent $700 or something like that, right? So it's all nice and good when you're way behind and don't have any content, to say, yeah, I spent all this in 1 year, but what does it equal out to once you've gotten to a point where you're running more, what you want to do on here?
Yeah, I bought the NASCAR tracks and the NASCAR A car, and I was set. I wasn't buying new stuff. I went. I would probably buy a track here and there that came out, but I usually didn't. And I usually didn't buy the new cars that come out. And so, yeah, I've kept my price down a lot. Now, that's just the cost of the subscription. I was like, man, can I figure out how much I spent on hardware? I can't. I wish I had categorized it somehow in my checkbook where I could have tracked that.
You really want to know that number?
Yeah, let's keep that quiet.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some wives that don't need to know that checkbook exists for that much. There's a reason these things sneak in through the back door when they're delivered and stuff like that. That's why I come through the garage and go straight down the back steps so the wife doesn't see what comes in through the car.
Exactly, or you're trying to race home before she gets off, so you get to the whatever was dropped off the first.
Well, I find it funny, even with the other day. My dad hasn't been over to my house since I built my new rig, and he didn't know I had done it. And he walked in the room and he goes, is that new? And I said, well, yeah, it's definitely different than the one I was racing on. And he's like, does your wife know that you bought that? I said, yes, she knows I bought it.
She just doesn't know how much.
Oh, it was on sale. It was on sale. It was the best deal you could get.
Exactly, exactly. But no, that's a good point. And I don't consider hardware directly tied with iRacing because if if I bought any racing game that I was really into, that I really enjoyed, the hardware would have come along with it no matter what game I bought. So it just so happens that iRacing supports a lot of this cool stuff that you can get, and so I don't tie that directly with iRacing.
I can throw out some rough numbers, of what my experience is, and I'll just do that. And you guys can keep yours quiet, but mine is, especially you, Brian. But my
Thank you.
numbers.
I appreciate that.
So I got my new wheel. I don't have yet, 1,300. You got the rig I did last fall, 3 to 4 thousand. You got the computer, 3,000. The computer before that, 2,000. The pedals, 1,200. The wheel base, 1,000. So yeah, and my rig before that, the Obuto, that was 1,000 as well.
I think you're up to 100 million.
But that's some rough numbers.
It's a hobby. We're gonna spend something on it. We love it. It's what it is. What it is. I mean,
So I think I just added up about 10 grand roughly. So maybe 10 grand in hardware, and then 1,400 for iRacing specifically. So yeah, I mean, it's a cheap hobby if you look at it that way. 1,000 a year. I mean, over 11 years. I mean, that's cheap. I mean, I can't even go shooting for 1,000 a year. Do my with my guns and stuff, or go have track days with go karts or something. I mean, that's cheap.
Yeah, you can't go golfing 20 times a
Right.
season for that price.
yeah, it's all relative to what you want to say it is, but when you have an initial cost, it always is going to look bigger than when it's spread over the actual time of play, right?
All right. Next one is Brian. Tell us about setup shop shenanigans.
I didn't get a chance to check this out. I know there were some issues with the setups that were proprietary to a certain company that may have been lifted from other people. Um, I'm not sure if it's okay to mention names, Mike, but if you think so, go right ahead.
Well, I mean, Greg, you asked, didn't we already talk about this in the past? And the answer is yeah. I mean, this has come up before. I want to say last fall or maybe last summer. I can't remember specifically, but we have a different report. We have this podcast called Area 51 Alien Factory, and they had an interview with um, Ken Byron from Ryko. And Ryko is one of the more popular setup shops out there. And there's a different setup shop apparently called Premier. And as of even recently in season 2 on cars A, B, and C, apparently Premier has been selling sets to drivers that were actually Ryko sets, and they had the notes in them from Ryko still in there. They forgot to remove the notes from the setups they stole.
Yeah, one have the notes still in there. That's pretty. I mean, you could probably make a case. Well, we just came to the same conclusions, but once you start seeing the notes in the sets from the sets, then that's a problem.
Well, Mike, do you find it odd that both times it's been Raiko in this, like, that we've come across? Raiko was the other one too. So, you know, is it, yeah, obviously, are they either that much better, setup wise, or is there standards for what they do, letting people, allowing them to get away with this or something? Like we don't remember seeing this with other setup shops that we know of, but obviously if some of these guys are smarter and get rid of the notes or things like that that look like it, um, it's probably easy to get away with stealing one if you're smart enough to watermark or get rid of anything that they kind of watermarked. But there is no way to fully watermark a setup. It's just a set of numbers, right?
I think it's big fish, little fish. I mean, they're just a target because of that, perhaps. But I don't think it's anything they're doing wrong. It's just, the way the video kind of rolls is the guy from Ryko is basically contacted by people within the team at Premiere saying, "Hey, this isn't cool. They're doing this. I'm getting out. I want to let you know." And, and they've given them, visual evidence of it too. So it's just like, okay, yeah. So be careful out there when you're buying setups, guys, and you never know what you're getting.
But also be truthworthy too, as individuals. Like, this community only survives because these other people build some of these things for us too, right? So we don't want to lose, good setup builders that help guys that don't know what they're doing but want to race and just come and race, that be more competitive in the open sets. We don't want to lose some of these builders, because then the system, or then the open series start dwindling.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't make a set if my life depended on it. I really couldn't, even though I've been doing this forever. And it amazes me when these guys can come up with these amazing sets that drive so well and whatnot. And you're right. I mean, we need this as a community. We need setup shops. I mean, it's evolved into this thing that, and there's money in it. You have to pay a subscription usually, but that's understandable because these guys are putting a ton of time in it. And so in the video, you'll also see Ken describe his setup builders putting in 40, 60, 80 hours, over, a 2 or 3 week span on a particular set. Real time spent on these things. And he was even suggesting they're not really making money, on the whole thing. It's not really a profit situation.
Well, I mean, it's this is what we need people out there to do these things. It's like we need companies to build hardware. Like, we could still be racing iRacing on a controller. Nobody has to invest in building any of these other things for us to do these type of things. So we don't want to lose the things we have, by cheating the systems or pissing off some of these guys. We appreciate every single person in the community that really tries to offer what they're best at. And I mean, look at what we do. We don't have to do this. We do this nonprofit, out of our own time, for fun.
Yep, great points. And these guys, if they are making anything, they're not going to be able to spend it on any kind of legal repercussions, to try to recuperate what they're losing from these other companies that are stealing their sets. It's an obvious IP, intellectual property infringement type of deal, but it to make it stick legally, it would cost money, and I would imagine these guys don't want to invest the money into any kind of legal fees to recuperate their losses when they're not making that much to begin with. They'd probably rather just quit doing it,
Yeah.
and we don't want that.
Well, and so what do they do instead? They do what they did. They get out to the community. They get the word out to this guy on the video. They get us talking about it on our podcast. Our listeners hear about it. It's talked about maybe in the forums. And so that's how it's policed, is people are going to know, hey, we don't want to do business with the people that are stealing the setups, and so they don't, and then they go out of business, and it self corrects itself. The market will fix it.
That's true. But if you are one of the companies that are stealing these sets, you're not putting in 40 to 80 hours every week or two to build them. You're just ripping it off and selling it. You're not invest in anything. So their margin for profits are a lot looser because they're not investing any time in it. They're just copy and pasting basically.
China.
Plagiarism's plagiarism, right?
All right, I got the next one. It's karting versus sim racing. Which is the better training ground? And this video by Safe is Fast is quite good. I mean, it's 5 minutes 30 seconds long, and it has some interviews from some drivers, including Max Esterson, who recently crossed over from iRacing to Real Racing, as well as others like Connor Daly, describing what's better. I mean, what's a better training ground? Is it go-karts? Is it sim racing? Is it both? And we get opinions on all those. Some drivers saying, sim racing's not the way to go. You need to get in a real car so you can feel the wheels below you. I think what driver was the one saying that? One of the IndyCar drivers, Pato Award, I believe is his name. Pato Award was the one saying, yeah, the sim, I can't feel it in my butt. It's not the same as being in a car. But pretty much all the other drivers are saying, hey, if you're in racing now, you got to be in the sim. There is value there. You can. One guy, the guy from Le Mans, said, hey, you come off the winter season, you want to get back in the racing frame of mind, you go sim racing. You get some repetition going and that kind of thing.
Well, and you got to think of, depending on what you're doing, like from where the climates of sometimes we are in the world too. Like racing's not always 100% time of the year. Like if you're here in Canada, you're only racing in the warm part of the year. So in the off season, you train your brain in other ways, right? Like when you're off season, you train your brain to do this if you can't get into a physical car. But I believe your first bet, if you're serious about wanting to be a racer, you're gonna have to be in a car that you're actually manhandling around track. You got to be in a real life car if you got the money to do it, and then mix it in with sim time to train for other things. You got to use a portion of each just to make yourself good nowadays. If you think of how much sim time these guys put in during the week and off times while they're not in the car. I mean, it's sim time, it's working out, it's eating right, it's driving cars in real life. Like it's a whole lifestyle when you're doing this. It's not, you can't just do one thing. It's you got to pick you got to dedicate your whole life to doing if you're going to be serious about racing, to do the discipline the right way.
Another guy was saying that the go-kart is the go-kart. It's not a GT3. It's not an open wheel car. It's not a NASCAR. So sim racing, will give you that experience, in the bigger cars and different things that, you'll never learn in go-kart racing, so there's that, of course.
Well,
I think that the real racing gives you a better understanding of race craftsmanship, because there's consequences that you don't get in sim racing for doing dumb things. So I think one thing that you would learn a lot quicker in real life is just those kind of etiquette things where serious uh, there's serious repercussions for having these doing bad things, so that's one thing I think is at least the learning curve is probably a lot quicker on in a real car than it is in sim racing.
Yeah, and I don't see it in the video, but I remember the head of McLaren. He was on there saying that esports is really the new entry level point to motorsports, and they're really tying together because of that. Pretty cool. We have one event on the current event list. Just a reminder about our listener, Ron Morris. He has ronmorrisracing.com, and he has that Bristol doubleheader with the trucks, first and next gen second. It's a money race. First place money is guaranteed. It's only a $15 entry for the trucks, $25 for the cup. And you can find him at his website, ronmorrisracing.com, for more information. This is April 23rd, guys.
Kind of odd that they have trucks will be only an I rating of 2,500 or less on it, don't you think? I mean, and then the cup race is open to anyone.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that they want to do that so that they have a division that's almost like a drivers who,
non-pros.
right, non-pros, guys who are just maybe still learning a little bit and want to get into a race that's not going to be completely dominated by the professional, high-end
That's a good
guys.
idea. I
Yeah, I
like
like
it.
that idea. I like it a lot.
Okay. Other
Did you guys
housekeeping. Go ahead.
sorry, did you guys talk about the Ross Chastain finish in the Coda race?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
combined it with the limits one.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I missed that earlier, and wish I was in on that one. I missed that one.
Okay, so housekeeping. Don't forget the Aftermath podcast out there. Get it. Our website, iRacersLounge.com. Man, it's a treasure trove of hardware links, guys, if you're looking for stuff. I can't tell you. We've been building it over a year now. So check it out. Performance Motorsports Network. We're over there too. Brian, how about fantasy?
Okay, so this week in fantasy was Coda, obviously. Winner of the week was Oh Baby 44, and that actually gave him the lead in the fantasy overall. So Oh Baby 44 is in the lead overall with Spike Man 19 in second, and our own Tony Rochette, Tony the Tiger, third place. He's having a good season. GI Jojo is in eighth overall, a returning champion. So he's got a little bit of work to do in the remaining races. There's still a long way to go. I think Tony Groves is still floundering a little bit for him. He's been so good at these the past couple years. So maybe he's not getting things right with the new car or something like that. But so we'll look forward to Tony to try to get back in this thing too.
You had a pretty good week, Greg.
Yeah, it was a little bit hit or miss. Um, that was so hard to figure out. It's not your conventional road racers. Like AJ Allmendinger was kind of like the only one that was your conventional road racer that was up there. The rest of it was hit or miss of how the race was going to go, and the way that that thing was playing out. It just just wasn't in my favor. I was up and down all race. I can't remember. I think I put someone in the garage, and as soon as I did that, someone else got totaled that was in my lineup, and it's like, oh, great, just as soon as you do it. But I don't know if you guys find it. I don't like the way the other part of the fantasies set up this year. I'm okay with the five picks and that stuff, but I don't like the picking one person over another. It seems like I kind of like either last year or the year before better than what they're doing this year.
Yeah, I'm just kind of randomly choosing those. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you're not doing any real research into it. Yeah, I don't know. I think the manufacturers that we used last year, it seemed like they would just get into a rhythm where it's like every week you were picking Hendricks, and then some of the other manufacturers came on a little bit later in the season, but I think maybe that's why they went away from that version of the bonus points. But yeah, I don't know. I don't hate the way they're doing it now, because you can find these little matchups to follow along with your other drivers to see if you can grab a couple extra bonus points. So I could go either way with that one.
Yeah, I didn't do very well. I was 31st. Chris Chris Scales 48th. Steve Llewellyn 55th. Now he was leading or not long ago, or I think, but yeah, he didn't have a great week. Bobby Jonas 57th. Okay, hardware, software. How about a video card? Somebody was talking about, is it time to buy a 3090? And if the price is right, now we can find out now, because Paul's Hardware has an updated Google spreadsheet of pricing of all the different cards. What was their MSRP? What was the street price January, February, March? And how much has it changed?
It's kind of like the stock market, looking at this for GPUs, right? Figuring out going up and down. When's the right time to buy?
Well, if you look at the trend, the prices are going down, big double-digit percentage numbers from where they were. So are they at MSRP yet? No, they're not. So, for example, the RTX 3090 was an MSRP of $1,500. The retail price in March, $2,140. So it's still overpriced.
Now, this is obviously probably because supply is starting to pick up for the demand, so that's probably why it's coming down, right? Like we're getting more cards are diluting the market to bring it down. So maybe by mid to late year, do you think we get closer to MSRP?
Yeah. So Paul's Hardware is a YouTube video channel, and he basically said, yeah, he's expecting the price to continue to go down to MSRP. But the other thing is, NVIDIA is going to be releasing the 4000 series here any moment. AMD has new cards, and then Intel is going to have their card this year too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the percentage over MSRP from the launch price to what it was actually selling for on the street is kind of staggering. Um, I remember them. I remember when they announced the RTX, like the 3080s, and saying, "Yeah, it's going to be a $700 card." I was like, "Man, this is awesome! $700 for a 3080 card." Well, I mean, the street price was $1,600 in January. I mean, that's great. That's 132% over the retail price. It's over more than double what the launch price was supposed to be. The GPU cards are just skyrocketed in these places, and you know, when these 4080s come out, don't even look at what NVIDIA is going to say that the price is at launch. It's not going to be that. It's going to be 2.5 times that. So be prepared for that, I think.
If you can get it. The other thing too, if I'm thinking of this, so I have the 3080 Ti, and it's saying the MSRP was what, $1,200 American, right? So that's in US dollars. I paid $2,000 Canadian for mine. So that's like $2,500 American. So it's double the price.
It's worth, basically.
Yep.
But so did everybody else who bought a card during that time frame. I mean, it's not like you got ripped off.
I'm never going back either. This system is the best thing. I will never give up for what it is. From what I was running to what I got now, I'm completely and utterly satisfied with everything I did.
It's just crazy I mean, the last time I built a computer, I got the 2070 Super, and I think I paid $700 for it. And to think that, if I was to build a computer today, I'd probably want the 3090, and I'd have to pay $2,100 for it. Compare that to 700 on my last build. That's a huge jump, huge.
Well, and I look at it as, so I have my studio computer and then I have my gaming computer. To build my studio computer, it is under the amount of what it costs to just buy the GPU for my gaming computer. That, like, I could build the whole system on my studio computer for less than just the GPU for my gaming one.
All right, now this link, this spreadsheet, guys, it got all the pricing, of course, what it should be, what it was, what it MSRP, but it also is just a nice list of all the cards that are available on the market from AMD and NVIDIA. And it gives you a quick comparison of which one's cost more than the other and that kind of thing. And so if you're looking to buy, I mean, this is a great resource. Okay, Greg, how about Rig Metal Flagship Cockpit?
Yeah, so Rig Metal Flagship Cockpit is obviously the site is rigmetal.com. They have they're calling it their black cockpit, I guess. It is cockpit black. It's $800 American, I believe that's in on here. Yeah, it is. It's basically a basic 80/20 profiled rig with. I'm just trying to find out. Does that seat come with it on this? I'm just trying to find that out. But anyways, it's your basic 80/20 rig setup on. It's got feet. The seat that it's in the picture here looks like a decent seat, reclining seat for it. But it's just another option with the deck, a small deck for. I would guess these are for the other. These aren't for the direct drive sets. I don't know if there is an option for direct drives on here. I'm trying to find that out still, but it looks like a decent starter rig.
Yeah, they have options for mount, which increase the price to $830 or $850, and the seat doesn't come with it.
Okay, I see it now. Yeah, what you're saying.
Yeah, it looks like your normal 80/20, kind of profile, like rig that you would get almost everywhere. The thing about this is it's available when a lot of places are, like Sim Labs apparently is not available.
Now, obviously, that being said, without a seat, I mean, it is a little costly for an 80/20 at that price too, without a seat.
Yeah.
But like you said, when something's available, it's probably going to sell a little bit more too, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this company before. I just thought I would bring it up again because, yeah, I think there's a lot of back order situations going on out there. But basically, if you go to their homepage, they say new orders ship within 2 business days. And they do flat rate of $30 shipping on the entire order in the continental US. Shipping isn't crazy either.
But a restock does?
And they have other stuff. They do offer the seats. They have a triple monitor stand. They have accessories and add-ons and so forth. Okay, Brian, we got another review on that wheel, the IMM Source.
Yeah, this is the M Source ET5 direct drive wheel and base, being reviewed by Barry Rowland at the Sim Racing Garage. So this is that 15 Newton meter, or sorry, it's 17 Newton meter wheelbase that we talked a little bit about last week with SimPit. So I'll just jump to Barry's final thoughts because he basically is real happy with it. He felt that it was very smooth. The buttons on the wheel were good. It has its own proprietary software, and he thought that you could really dial this in quite well with the software. He was very happy with the balance between smoothness and strength. Um, so real happy with that. The construction was very solid. There was no play in the connection point and the quick connect, like a lot of people complain about Fanatec, where there's a little bit of a wobble in that quick release. So he had a lot of good things about it. One of the things that he mentioned, and I concur with him, is that there's so many good products as far as direct drive wheels available now. It's getting really hard to decide which one you want to get. Um, so a solid review from Barry at Sim Racing Garage, and we know he puts these products through the ringer and really tests them hard. So yeah, so like I said, it's just another really good wheelbase to choose from if you're getting ready to get into that market.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to have too many choices, and that's kind of where we're at with these things. But yeah, there's a lot of different options out there for sure. This next one I ran across, Liron Sejev shows on his YouTube channel different power options that you should do on your computer. Um, and he basically says there's a thing in Windows that is called fast restart or fast startup, I guess is what it's called. And he basically says go in there and turn it off in the settings. Why? Because what happened, it's called turn on fast startup. And so you basically go uncheck that under control panel, hardware and sound, power options, and system settings. Why? Because if you don't, it doesn't actually shut down the computer completely when you do a shutdown. It leaves the kernel up and running. So if you know anything about Windows, you know everything runs in a kernel. Well, the kernel actually never gets restarted or shut down unless you uncheck that Windows setting. And so he's saying if you should uncheck it. That way, when you shut down your computer, it does shut down the kernel. And so when the computer restarts, it's restarting the kernel fresh and it doesn't have any cache in it or any other problems and so forth. And so why not? I went ahead and made the change. And, I can't tell if it's made a difference or not, but it seems plausible that it makes sense to do it.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting too, because with those kernels still active with a fast shutdown, if you were having an issue with a piece of software that wasn't communicating right or something like that, and you thought just by shutting it down and starting it back up, you were going to fix the problem, you might not, because those kernels will remember everything that the problems were causing. So yeah, so he shows you how to do this. I think there was a secondary way to do it by hitting shift as you power down. That was also on his video. So there's a secondary option to do that hard shutdown rather than the fast shutdown. The easiest way was to go into your power settings and adjust that to get it to where it shuts down by disabling the kernels every time you do a full shutdown as well. Um, and he also showed you how to set up a hibernate when you instead of a sleep mode. A sleep mode is different than the hibernation screen. So, for example, when I shut down my computer, the LEDs stay lit up. Or sorry, not when I shut down. When I put it to sleep, the LEDs stay active. Any peripherals you had set up through the USBs are still powered. But when you shut it, when you do a hibernate instead of a sleep, it does disconnect all that background power and shuts it off. But when you do restart the computer, it will remember whatever programs you still had active at the time when you shut it down or put it to sleep. So yeah, some neat options for different ways to shut down your computer and the benefits of doing it in different ways.
I definitely didn't know about this stuff. I'm gonna have to set my computers up because I found the last couple days I've been, it's some of the nights after running after a while on the sim, like even the other night when we were running the fast track, like my room was really hot. So after I was done the race, I turned the computer off and shut everything down just to try and cool my room down. So if some of these things aren't, and I know my gaming computer turns on real quickly and goes right to the thing, so I'm gonna see if any of these things are enabled because I'd like to make sure I'm doing the right thing for it.
Yeah, so he said if you restart your computer, it does restart the kernel, but when you shut down, it doesn't actually because of that fast restart toggle. Pretty cool. All right, next up is some Sim Magic Pedals review by Lawrence DeSosawa. I really butchered that one. He reviews the Sim Magic pedals, and it's interesting to see what Sim Magic has done with their pedals. What did you think? I mean, they look pretty cool.
Well, yeah. First of all, I would say they look pretty neat. I like the pedal pads for the brake gas and clutch. So it's a combination, right? Load cell for certain things and the hydraulic for the brake. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they got a mix of stuff going on, and at the end of the day, at the final thought part, I mean, he wasn't too favorable on a few things, specifically the clutch. Just wasn't right at all. The design is a little weird because if you look at, I'll tell you where to look at. The timestamp is 1450, and you'll see the clutch is the way the mechanism works is it pushes that rod down and it goes backwards and then it falls down into a lower hole, and it's just clunky, I think is the way they described it, but the way it looks is kind of weird too.
Do you think over time that thing wearing out could either bind or get stuck too, maybe, if not properly maintained? Like I feel like it could get if you get like a burr or something on something in there, it gets stuck and it just doesn't operate. I find that the clutch pedal is because a lot of these cars don't use the clutch as much anymore, and for some of these things, there's a lot less technology and these expensive pedals going into that. It's more the accelerator and the brake, right?
Yeah, and that's what he said. I mean, if you're only worried about the accelerator and brake, you're probably fine with these. Yeah.
I do remember him mentioning that the hydraulics on the brake pedal had made a little whining noise, um, which was kind of weird. So I don't know if that's an indication of a possible issue where they could leak over time. I don't know, but yeah, that was kind of odd that they make a noise when you're pressing the pedal.
And then the pedal face actually came loose on him, and like the bolts weren't tightened down. It was just little stuff like that. The other thing he mentioned was the electronics. Um, he said the people that designed the brakes seemed like they were a different team from the people who designed the electronics, and they never talked to each other because it looked like the electronics part of the brakes were just an afterthought. Like, oh, the last minute, oh, we got to figure something out, and basically you just got this little plexiglass box with the electronics in it. There's nowhere to put it, and then the wires are just kind of run all over.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at this. I know, Brian, I don't know how much of an F1 fan you are, but looking at this reminds me of when Honda came in and was trying to fit their motor in the McLaren body, and McLaren couldn't figure out how to design. Would design the car and then try and shove the motor in, and neither of them were working together when they first started going at it because it was two different entities working together.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're saying when you're trying to fit that square peg in a round hole, and it's not quite working because it wasn't designed to meet up in the middle to begin with. Um, so yeah, that's a good analogy. But yeah, I think you're kind of on the right path with the way that he mentioned that these pedals and electronics are not quite matched up right.
Mike, I'm just watching on the one spot here. I think it's like around the 1730 mark when he's shaking the pedals side to side. It seems like they are not the sturdiest pedal design either. Like they're, there's no. I don't know if I'd have confidence if I'm pushing it straight down that it's going straight, because it looks like you could, but like if you miss it, what if your foot slides off and you push it on the side? Like I feel like it's just not a sturdy base feeling to it.
Yeah, there's play left to right, as he wiggles them. You're right. Man, I mean, when you look at these, it makes you think how awesome those sim coach pedals are. They don't move a millimeter. They don't move at all. I mean, they're like granite. And they have a place for the electronics and the wires, and it all looks seamless, and so it really makes you to appreciate some of the better designed pedals, I guess.
Yep, yep, and that's the difference between like really high end pedals and
That's why they
pedals that
cost
are
twice as
not
much,
quite
right?
there. Yeah, right. It's high end user stuff. Yeah.
You pay for what you get.
And that's the word right there. That's definitely what the hardware is. You definitely get what you pay for.
So let's talk about this next one. Do they get what they pay for with the Next Level Racing Motion Plus platform? Now, we've already talked about this last week. Another video has surfaced, and so I wanted to take a look at it. And this one is actually put out by Next Level Racing, and it shows a view from behind, from the side, and from the angle, from an angle of the motion of this cockpit as he goes around the track, and you kind of get a visual of how the cockpit sways, forward, backwards, left, right, as he drives around the track, and it gives you a flavor of how much play does this motion system have. I mean, what'd you think, Brian, when you saw this?
Um. Yeah. We did talk about this last week. It's the one that has the platform that's underneath the rig and doesn't have the actuators on the four corners. So looking at it, I feel like the actuator system, like I have, has better movement, more movement, and is less money. I wasn't super impressed with what I saw as far as the range of motion, the quickness and speed of the motion. That's always really important because if you're racing and you hit the brakes really hard, you want that thrust forward to be like instant and really strong. And I didn't to me this system didn't quite look like it was up to the par as far as that goes. And if that's the case, then the actuator system is a cheaper version to get a better result.
I, I don't. When I'm looking at this, it kind of all the systems I've seen, it reminds me of like a base shaker system. It's not really. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of motion movement. It's so little. It's like a shaker of it.
It's subtle. Yeah, you're right. It's not a lot of range of motion. The timing or the delay, I see a delay now. It could be the video, the way that they did it. Maybe it's not lined up just perfectly. So you got to give them that. But, when you see the car on the left side, go into the corner, and you see on the right side the cockpit leaning, or one side, it feels like there's just a little delay there. Just a tiny bit. I mean, but that's all it takes, right?
Yeah, that's all it takes to, when your mind is seeing something and your body's not reacting to it, or at least not reacting to it right away. it throws it off just a touch, but it could be all that it takes to remove some of the immersive feeling of it.
Why do you think Next Level Racing thinks this is better than the D-box style, four-post, four-corner thing?
Is it just their theory on a new design, and that's what they're trying to force? It's just something different.
I mean, it's very low profile because it doesn't, add to the left or right of the rig, and make it stick out further because everything's underneath it, So that's the only advantage I can see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that would be the biggest the biggest selling point is that you do get the motion, but you don't have to. You don't need any extra space for it. It fits right underneath what you already have.
All right, next up, Brian, overlays in VR.
Okay, yeah. So I saw this YouTube video after I was looking at the MRTV, the Mixed Reality TV YouTube channel, and I was going through a couple of his videos, and he had one on an Open XR, which is a software program that he was able to use on Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it really increased his frame rate for what he was getting before. Now, the flight simulator from Microsoft is a notorious system hog, and you can really get laggy, slow frame rates because it's such a intensive system. Well, he tried this OpenXR third-party software, and he was able to keep the resolutions, but the frame rates nearly doubled. So I looked and I was just searching around to see if this OpenXR was available for iRacing or if it worked on iRacing. It's supposedly a third party app, so it should work with any software, any game, because it's not tied to Microsoft Simulator. I think it was just he used that as an example because it's such a system hog. But what I did find when I did that, they use this OVR toolkit um, to put overlays in iRacing on VR. So it was able to use Race Labs and a couple other third-party systems. And this video shows you how to put these overlays in your VR headset and using this OVR toolkit. So this video is from someone called No Tech Drama. And yeah, he goes over it and shows you how he set it up. So if you're one of those guys who likes VR but doesn't like the ability to not see these third-party apps while you're in VR, this video will walk you through and show you how you can do that. So it's a pretty cool thing. I've heard a lot of people asking me questions about using overlays in VR, and this video will help you guys out with something like that.
Brian, we've all raced VR, like me, you, David. There's a bunch of us that run or had run VR. I think that was the thing that was lacking the most always with VR is the overlays. Just the technology for the overlays in VR was just not there to use third party apps. It was whatever iRacing had, and that was it. And we'd like to use our other softwares properly in there. We've had ways of bringing them in, kind of, but they were never good fixes. So if this is something that might work a little bit better, um, it's good to finally have that.
Now, is the OVR toolkit free?
I didn't check that out, but I think it is because
That's cool.
I did a quick hit on it and I didn't see any price associated with it. I haven't downloaded it or nothing or really gotten deep into it. I just thought this was really cool because I know a lot of people have been asking questions about overlays in VR. And going back to Greg's point, how many Coke drivers use VR? The answer is zero. And part of the reason is because they're running at a such high end of competition. They need all the data that they can get, and you just don't have that ability so easily in VR. Whereas if you had the extra screen for data, um, it can help you out a lot more if you have this information. And I don't know if that means something like this would change a co-driver's mind because there's other things to consider, like you're on TV and it's not as exciting to see somebody in their rig with a mask on their face. So but yeah, so this gives you the ability to get some of that data in front of you while you're racing in VR.
So I haven't done VR. So I mean, how is David putting an overlay in VR now without this tool?
Well, I think David's working with what you run there, right, Brian? Because I know how it's done in the Rift S's and stuff like that. You have to make a virtual window, which is basically it's like basically adding a third monitor inside your screen and either put it up or down, and it's basically taking one of your monitors and running as a resource inside of it, which does hog a lot of GPU and CPU resources too. When you add another, you got two goggles trying to render, and then you add a third screen in where you're putting it like above or below where you're looking, which is kind of hinders too, right? If I'm using a third window and I got to put it up or down, you either look up or you look down when you're doing something. It kind of doesn't help you when you're racing.
I bet you David will be the first one to try this too.
Yeah, I know David swears by whatever he's got done right now too. So it might be whatever way he has it. He might like it now. I don't know. He'd have to look at this video and watch it. I would definitely suggest David probably watch this video and see if there's any benefits to him. Right?
Yeah, I think it'd be somebody like David who is he's top split guy, and he needs his telemetry. He utilizes it quite a bit. So this might be a different way for him to configure it. So yeah, it's I really haven't messed a whole lot with overlays myself personally, because I feel like it you lose some of the immersive feeling of actually being in a race car. Um, and I'm not good enough that telemetry is going to make me that much better anyway. So yeah, so I just thought this was a pretty cool idea to set some people in the direction of setting up multiple overlays and stuff.
Okay, pretty cool. Last hardware we have is a rain sim posted by Sim Race Blog NL on Instagram. Shows a photo of the guy in his cockpit in a race, and he's got shower heads installed above the triples, showering down the rain on him as he drives. What do you think about getting a rain sim?
You're wearing, especially in VR, you're wearing a lot of electronical stuff. I don't suggest that this is a good idea to have anything water. A wind simulator is where I think we draw the line of immersion. I don't think we go uh, to having a wet rig in a wet area while you're driving. I mean, obviously, we're less than what 8 hours away from starting to see some really weird jokes coming out for the next. Sorry, less than 4 hours away from seeing some really weird jokes pop up here of April Fool's jokes.
Yeah, this came from Europe, and it's April 1st already in Europe. So this is all part of the April Fools.
Question is, could you actually make that work? That's the question. I know they make electronic valves that would
Yeah,
probably
that's what I was gonna say.
off with certain feedback from a computer. So I think you could probably actually make that work in one way or another. But yeah, I don't think that's practical.
Yeah,
Now, in sim is what I've decided. I was sweating racing the other day, and I'm like, man, it's almost summer. I need to win sim, so I'm going to buy one for sure.
yeah, I'm looking into that as my next investment too, Mike. That's what I want to add for this next couple months here.
Now, which one do you have, Brian?
I have the Simnetics one. It's a company we reviewed about a year ago, I guess. And it's a pretty solid win sim. All of them, pretty much all of them that I've heard reviews on, there's a noise factor involved, so it can be kind of loud. But um, Yeah, the one I got was pretty good. You can get it with or without the telemetry. I know that who the Sim Racing Studios has their own wind simulator kit, so that's another one you might want to check into.
All right. Let's talk results. NASCAR iRacing series. Let's see how we did at COTA. I finished up Friday Open P9. Started like 16th, got to 11th by lap 1. I always kick butt on the first lap. At the end of the long interstate, some guy went right across my brow as I made that sharp U-turn. 25 seconds damage. I only slipped like once, and I lost a couple of seconds. Other than that, it was pretty much a flawless race. Really happy to get a top 10 on a road course. Man, those two things never came out of my mouth before. David, he got a technical issue. He said he tightened his throttle cylinder and couldn't get the car to downshift the whole race. It wasn't getting enough response to blip.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was a little frustrated because he left pretty quickly too from that race after it did. And he's like, "Bye, guys," and then that was it.
Like he literally couldn't shift, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, blip turned on to make it easy.
Well, and
Yeah.
and David's not here.
On auto blip.
Yeah, I don't use AutoBlip on it either, but I know David afterwards went to work with downloading the Sim Coach software to work with the throttle pedal, and he got it to where he was consistently running better lap times at that track. So I'm interested to see over the next couple of weeks how that benefits him going forward with the software.
Yeah, he did get it fixed.
I'm surprised he didn't have that Sim Coach software downloaded sooner. It's been around for a little while.
I think with him it was just he was comfort factor. He was where he was at, and then now I guess he's just looking for that little extra edge, right? Like fine tuning stuff. The further he goes.
Yeah, because those pedals they're pre-bled, as they call them, and they're ready to go out of the box. I mean, like you could bolt them on and race them without the software, I think.
Yeah, you definitely can. It's just the full software you had the ability to fine tune it a little bit better.
All right, Greg, you had you had a good race going, but you got disconnected.
So I'm just a little sucks. I don't know. It sucks. I don't know what's happened. But sometimes you just can't pinpoint why disconnects happen, and you just got to move on with it.
Yeah, you didn't lose TeamSpeak or anything like that.
That's what's like. You said the same thing, Mike. When you've had disconnects, it's like, why does it disconnect in certain things and not others?
Right. Like if I lost internet at my house, I would lose my TeamSpeak connection, right?
Well, even my thing is mine's the way our stuff is it's all cable or it's all through our cable and stuff is through the internet as well. So if the whole thing went down, technically my kids and my wife watching TV, they should have lost signal too, which they don't.
All right, Kyle got a P6. He said, started P10, worked my way up to top 5, and held the top 5 all the way through pit cycles. Led 4 laps and pitted on lap 22, hoping to make up ground with fresh tires while the field had older tires. Came out P7 and just overdrove the car the last 12 laps. It had a better finish if he had pitted when everyone else did. He was on that alternate strategy, and I actually think it bit him.
I think the biggest problem is guys overthink the road courses. Without cautions, just pit it halfway. There's just no need to. I've always pitted it halfway, and maybe a couple laps earlier if you've gotten in traffic or something. If you want to leapfrog traffic, pit a lap earlier or whatever. But halfway is where you got to pit on the road courses without cautions.
All right, Sunday Open. Kyle P5 was having PC issues. Restarted my PC during qualifying, so started back in 18th. Started the race with shifter issues, pitted lap 1 to fix it, came out P26, got involved with a spin right in front of me and got some damage. Fell back to 27th, worked my way up through the field, pitted at the halfway, came out P7, continued to charge on and work up to a P5. I was running down 3rd and 4th, but just ran out of laps. So that time he did the halfway. All right, let's move on to Richmond. David, P7. Caught by other cars wrecking 4 times, had to finish the 3rd green-white checker with 16X. Almost unlucky lucky. Won't be able to get into the car again until Sunday. Yeah, David's in a concert situation, playing saxophone and whatnot. I got to spot David on the last few laps of his race, and I was just telling him, protect the bottom, protect the bottom. Those guys were trying to dive down on the inside, and he was able to keep his spots doing that. I wins the Open, P19. Yeah. I actually had a good run going, was marching forward on old tires. I went from 19th as high as 4th, but on lap 140, I got just a hair loose, and it turned back to the right and slammed to the wall, and then slammed down to the inside wall. Over 4 minutes damage. I lost 2 laps and just brought it home after that.
Mike, I was watching your replay on that. Did it do the quick, like the where it grabs when it feels like it's floating and then all of a sudden grabs and turns right, or was it just an unlucky turn back?
It was just a very minor loose, coming up off 4, late off 4, like almost to the start finish line, and just a little bit loose, and then you're just trying to correct just a hair. I mean, you're just turning back just to the right, just a touch, and the whole car just goes right. I saw another guy who was running good today who had the same exact wreck. So it's something to do with this car. I don't think it was just me. Tom Dreiling ran. He got wrecked and just marched it home as well. And then Steve Llewellyn, I forget where he finished. I think he was 7th, and he had a fairly good run. Okay, and then today, Thursday Open, P2. I started 9th, fairly clean race up front, worked my way up to eventually leading the race with 50 to go. I led the last 50, green-white checker number 1. Restart, the guy dives bombs from way back. He gets by. And so I, in the middle of the corner, get into the back of him a bit. And I pushed him up a lane. It was a classic bump and run, very much like Ross did, or AJ did to Ross. And I got back by. But I was so focused on that move, I forgot about everybody else. And the guy that was in 3rd gets by both of us somehow. And so he doesn't get by us, but he gets up at least side by side with me. And I'm on the outside. He's on the inside. We're coming through 3 and 4 to the checker. I can't hold him off. We touch a little bit. And at the line, he won it. 0.03 second difference. It was literally side by side, an inch difference at the line. Yeah, so it was bittersweet, I guess is the word I was telling Greg. I was shaking like a leaf afterwards. This is the 2nd time this year that I've been leading on the white and not win the race. And so I feel like I've given up a win, just like I did in Phoenix and now Richmond. And yeah, I mean, after all our talk earlier about intentional wrecking and all that and bump and run, yeah, I did a bump and run today. Did I regret it? I don't think so. I mean, I'm going for the win. It's the white flag. I've led the 50 lap. I mean, you got to look at the whole circumstance, just like you were saying earlier, Greg. The whole circumstance was I was in control of that race for the last 50. He dive bombed from 4 or 5 back to get inside of me. I let him have it so we wouldn't wreck. I was going to take my win. I was going to take it back, and so I did move him out of the way.
Let's put it this way. Mike, after watching the replay of that, and I don't want to give this guy any more screen time or any more listener time because he doesn't deserve it, but watching it, what did he expect was going to happen? Did you expect, oh, you went by me, I'm going to let you go, you go have the win? No, that's not how you race. I'm sorry. You entered the corner, you rotated the corner better, and guess what? His bumper happened to be where you were rotating better through the corner. It wasn't a spin, it was a move up the track, and you got it. Did you not focus on the car behind you? Yeah, he got through the corner better than both of you, and he went on and took the win. The guy that got moved, he can be bitter all he wants, but if he was in that situation, he's doing exactly what you did. So I don't want to hear, this, he wouldn't do this or I wouldn't do that. Everybody in your situation would have done the exact same thing. I'm sure Brian thinks the same thing that I do there. Probably almost everybody that racing would do it. Brian shaking his head, joke here.
It was a classic NASCAR ending. It really was. I mean, and just on the wrong side of it. I mean, do I want to be leading on the last restart? I feel like I did, and I didn't want to be in second. I just felt like I had an advantage because I could jump on the restart, but those guys ate my clock on that last lap, and man, one of these days I'll get it.
Hey, I mean, if you want to look at it this way, Mike, that person, if he really doesn't like the way that you race them there, there's plenty of other motorsports he can be a part of. There's F1 where they don't do any of that stuff, and they cry about it when somebody races them hard. So he can take his talents or whatever elsewhere and do that if he doesn't like being passed fairly with a little bit of contact, because technically you could have just taken him completely out.
Well, does the O be one? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
And how are you going to feel if he does the exact same thing to you? Will you be shocked, upset?
No, it's part of it. It's like I said after the Coda race, bar rules. I mean, that's the kind of racing I like. I mean, anything goes, and it was kind of like that today in Richmond. So
yeah, it's short track racing. On the last lap. Come on. I mean, I'm the biggest proponent there is for clean racing, but that's not anything out of the ordinary or anything dirty. That's just hard racing at the end of a short track race.
Yeah, those guys were out to get me. I mean, they were going as hard as he could. He drove it. He overdrove that, trying to get inside of me. And so, yeah, it's just like you said, anything goes. So let's keep moving. Fast Track League. It was at Texas Oval. I kind of sucked and just kind of rode around. We didn't work on our set was basically the problem.
You didn't. Adam and I did. We had a couple hours beforehand into it, but I'm not going to lie. I don't have a handle on this car yet when it comes to that. We've been relying on sets with some minor adjustments, and we didn't have a database built up of a Texas set or something that was close to Texas that worked for us. I have a feeling if I hadn't got into some shenanigans with what was going on the track, maybe I finished better. But we just weren't contenders this week. But who cares? It's some weeks you're some weeks you're the bull, and some weeks you're the red cape.
Yeah, Adam ended up 10th.
And it went green all the way, too. Like, from 167 laps of green flag racing. No cautions.
Oh, yeah.
Did Fast Track this oval in lieu of Coda? Is that what they did? They just don't want to run the road course?
Well, and I don't know. We don't agree. Like, we kind of agree and don't agree with it. I mean, he doesn't want to lose the numbers by running the road course, so he's run some courses on the schedule he'll keep, but other ones that he doesn't want, he's switched out, and that's fine. It's his league; he gets to run it the way he wants. He's probably right. If Coda, what do we have? 33 or 34 starters for the Texas race there. Probably Coda's probably 20 or under, if you run Coda maybe. So it is what it is. I think even in a couple weeks here, we're running the Bristol Oval and not the dirt part.
Yeah, it's to keep the numbers up. I think it worked. I mean, we had a good turnout.
Well, and he's doing a great job with what's been going on. Like, he's picked the right guys to race clean races. I mean, that went 167 laps. Green flag racing on a week that had no it's not like any of the feeder series are running Texas, and people came in there. It looked like it was going to be a little bit of a problem from practice with people spinning, but they got all their spinning and crashing out in practice and did a hell of a job in the race.
Yeah, I certainly didn't expect it to be green the whole way.
And it's, so, it's for us. There's 3 of us that showed up. David was busy that day with his, recital stuff or band stuff. It kind of humbled us a bit. We got a little bit of work still to do, but it, just drives the fuel for a little bit more, right, Mike?
That's right. Other racing I did and hosted, Chris McGuire puts up this weekend caddies at Daytona. That was a blast, but I got wrecked out. Then it was 87s at Talladega. Man, that was super fun. I was driving from the back to the front. I mean, I can literally, there can be 40 guys out there, and I can start last, and I can get to the front at Talladega in the 87. I don't know. It clicks for me, better than others, obviously. But I ended up wrecked. And then David Hall joined me for the first time in a Chris McGuire hosted. Even though I got wrecked in the big one, he didn't, and he actually almost won. He was kicking himself after that race. He hit the wall, I think it was 1 or 2 to go. He hit the wall, and it basically lost his momentum. If he had not hit the wall, I think he would have won that race. Later on, I ran the IndyCar at Michigan. I ended up P4. And then the last race of the night, Supercars at Michigan, P2. Almost won that one. That was really close.
Are these all on the same night, Mike? Chris McGuire's hosted stuff?
This series of races was the same evening. I think it was Saturday night. But he runs them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I like some of the combinations he puts together. They look really fun.
They are, and there's always it's a short race, but there's limited fuel, and you have to stop for fuel. And so I always excel at these and usually end up contending for the win. So that's why I like it. OBRL Aftermath Truck Series, it's Tom Ogle with the win in the trucks at Richmond. Josh Robinson second, Jason Higginbotham third. Greg, what about your Get Her Done GT3 last week?
I finished P2. I didn't disclose this in the chat, but I threw away a win with, I think I was 9 seconds, 8, no, it wasn't that far ahead. Maybe it was only like 5 seconds ahead. I almost binned it in the last lap, and by the time I got back on the track, a guy that was, the Discord's always funny with the get her done guys. They're always talking and pumping you up or bringing you down with jokes trying to in there, and it's fun to listen to. And I think one of the comments in there was, "Don't mess up," and there I go and mess up and lose it on the last lap. But was a good race, and I really have fun just running the GT3s with these guys. I wish we'd have a little bit more um, turnout because the races are a little scarce sometimes with the turnout crowd. But we got a race tonight at Detroit, and then I think next week is to my home track at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So, I'm not saying anything, but I should probably be pretty good at that one. I'd hope.
Where was the race this past week?
Oh, last week was Mid Ohio.
Nice.
That's a interesting track with the GT3s, but definitely fun. And I really, like I said, I really enjoy this guys. They're putting on a good league, and I really wish the turnout numbers would be a lot higher for them, but they're growing, so it's good.
All right, let's jump into final thoughts. Brian McCubbin.
So yes, I had a really busy past week, and I didn't need a good reason to miss Coda, so I took one that I was really busy. So I'm looking forward to get back on some oval tracks that don't drive me absolute bananas, um, especially with the track limits on Coda. I missed an earlier discussion from you guys. I'm sure that came up because the track limits are so much different than what the way they raced it in real life. So looking forward to get back to an oval track real soon. I wanted to shout out to our teammate Tony Rochette, who's recovering from surgery, and hopefully he's coming back real soon. I think he's making good progress.
His bird wing got clipped.
All right. Yeah, get better out there, Tony. All right, Greg Hectus, final thoughts.
Just to reiterate what Brian's saying about the, talking. We were talking about Coda and the track limits. I think Mike, both myself and your I rating probably just went down, or your safety rating went down just talking about it. We probably got X's just talking about it, how sensitive it is. But I didn't totally like Coda with that car, but it is what it is. I'm really want to get into the swing of things with the tracks here. My hockey season is done on Sundays, so I can have my Sunday morning races back, so I can go to at least 2 races a week now, and get some more stuff done. So I can't wait for that. Yeah, and we'll just go from there. I mean, it was scarce for the show tonight. I thought it was going to be me and Mike back and forth all night, but Brian stepped in late there, and it was a good show, I think, for the 3 of us.
All right, yeah, well done. All right, my final thoughts, man. Excited for my new wheels to come. It's supposed to ship, I think, in 2 weeks, but I still have to wait for the hub from Fanatec, and that's not till like mid-May or later. So, but at least I'll be able to plug it in and look at it and hold it in my hand. And I could always take the hub apart on my oval wheel and do that, but I don't think I'll do that. I'll be patient. I've waited this long. But yeah, I'm excited to look into the wind sims. It's just now getting hot here in Phoenix, and I think I may have waited too long on this one. I want to maybe have them come up over the monitors. I can't, maybe underneath the monitors. I haven't decided on that. But sound is a consideration. Like Brian said, they're kind of noisy. So I'll just try to figure out which one's quieter and probably go with that. And as far as the racing, man, it feels good to be in contention. It makes me feel young again. It really does. To be leading laps when it's not a restrictor plate, when I'm legitimately up front, I've drove my way up there. I'm leading on the last lap. And when you're a NASCAR driver, you're not always going to win these things when you're leading on the last lap. And I've shown that because it's ruthless. I mean, it is cutthroat out there. And I think that's why it makes it so beautiful to win these things and so sweet when you do, because it's saying something. So with that, hey, we'll see you on the track later.